All right.
G'day.
Hi, everyone. We are live. Just trying to figure out how to get on there. I am Erica. Hopefully you guys have sort of come back or seen us before, but I'm here with Jared and Joanne. We've got some really cool stuff to talk about today, but I think what we would love to know first is where everyone is calling in from or watching in from. If you can please
calling in from.
Where are you calling in from?
Calling in, yeah.
It's a psychic
first time caller.
Yeah, it would be really great. Please add your comments. We had some people, I think, all the way out in Greece last time. And it's really helpful for us to sort of know who we're talking to. We can't really see anyone, so it'd be great to know that there's a pulse over there.
Someone out there, yeah, drop it in the comments. We are all in New York ourselves, all slightly different parts, I think, of the city, but for the most part, New York.
Yeah,
which means we're going to have to do a Design Unfiltered live in person at some point.
Yep.
Yes.
Nice.
I know.
Connor's here from SF. G'day, Connor.
Yeah. Hi, Connor.
Great designer.
Hi, Sergey.
Hi, man.
Great.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for joining us. Love it.
I know. Can you guys believe that the three of us, so Jared, Erica, and I, have never all met together in person yet?
In the same room.
In the same room?
Hudson Valley. Me too, Sergey. I live in Garrison. So there you go.
Oh, cool.
Nashville.
Yeah. I'm in Chester, so sort of next door.
Yeah. We are Hudson Valley.
Yeah.
Dude, where are you? You're in San Francisco, right?
Who?
Dune.
Oh, Dune.
Oh, yeah. Yep. G'day, Dune. Nashville, Tennessee. Mike, I've always wanted to go to Nashville. It's on the list.
Yeah.
I'm going to get there. And I'm going to ask you for some local recommendations of good coffee.
I'm surprised you haven't gone yet with your music.
I know. Yeah, I know. One of my favorite drum shops in the country is in Nashville. So I really want to get there and visit those guys.
Next
Seattle for Dune.
It
is.
Cool. Matthew's in Chicago. Hey, Matthew. I just went to Chicago for the first time last April, so a year ago.
Oh, cool.
My first time. It was so great. Everyone's like, you got to do the architecture tour, the boat tour.
Yeah.
And I did it. It was awesome. It was good.
That's wild. Crazy.
It was so
Minneapolis.
It was just a really beautiful place.
Going to Minneapolis in a couple of weeks. And then from Minneapolis, I'm actually driving to Chicago. So, yeah, Greenwood Lake, Warwick.
Oh my gosh. My one rowing expedition that I did was the rowing club, was East Arm Rowing Club on Greenwood Lake. So you are, Sergey.
Didn't love it, obviously. You only did it once.
Well, okay, to be fair, I did it right before the season was getting really cold. So they were going to cut it off anyways. And now I have been putting it off a little bit for this season because it's an early morning. It's a very early morning. No. I like to sleep in.
Don't do early mornings?
No, I'm getting more and more that way, but yeah, maybe I'll do it. I really loved it. It was really nice to be back on the water. It was gorgeous.
I'd love to try that out. I'd love to try a bit of rowing.
Yeah, come on over.
Well, thank you all for showing us that you're here breathing with us. I'm sorry. I think this week we're talking about the rejection stuff, I would assume, with like maybe why or what it means. We can help maybe dissect what the rejection is, if it was super vague or very specific, or kind of how to help people understand maybe why they were not selected or why they did not move forward. We'll try our very best to address internal ghosting stuff, I think. But I think in order to do this really well, it would be great if people would, share with us, if you feel comfortable, any feedback that you or a friend, ask for a friend, has received that was just really frustrating or hard. Earlier this week, I posted, my thoughts, if you follow me on LinkedIn, about, feedback and, sort of, sorry, somebody's calling me. I'm getting distracted.
Someone's dialing in, literally.
Someone's dialing in. I don't know where they're coming from, but yeah, we'd love to really just help people understand kind of maybe what's happening, and maybe help you guys sort of figure out how to ask from the beginning about feedback, about receiving it. It's there's a lot of different perspectives on providing feedback from internal teams, what people will do with that, sort of the response through activity, and we can probably help people guide the conversation from the start, I would think, in terms of how to like properly get information that can help you, whether you make it through or it's for the future.
Yeah. And I feel like, Joanne, you had some more context around this topic as well, maybe, because you had shared a bit of a post or something, and you had a few people comment.
Yeah, I posted, somebody had posted on our last Design Unfiltered and had a great question to bring up, and it just got me thinking, and it made me want to write a longer post about it, which was, you know, what happens when you say, when they tell you that they're passing on you because of cultural fit?
Right.
You know, my response to that was basically like, celebrate, like be glad
you dodged the
you're
bullet,
not at that company, because a cultural fit can mean lots of different things. It could be, you know, double speak for, you know, could be some sort of discrimination, maybe. I always like to assume the best of people. If it's just straight up cultural fit, like your personality doesn't mesh with the company or they feel it doesn't, and that could be an errant assumption on their part. So they might actually, you know, I've just heard about a candidate the other day who was initially going to be passed over because of cultural fit, because this candidate, the culture of the company was like very soft, very collaborative, like very like everybody's feelings have to be taken into an account all the time. This person was much more direct and much more like calling it as they saw it, and just not a lot of sugarcoating. And they almost passed on the person. And the person had an internal champion who really went to bat for them and said, I really think that we should take a chance on this person. They can absolutely do the job. I think the cultural stuff will work. They hired that person. It was one of the best hires they've ever had. And maybe the company kind of needed somebody to be a bit more direct. They didn't have a lot of people that were doing that. Like maybe that person was really able to drive stuff forward. So sometimes it's not in the company's best interest to pass because of cultural fit. But if they do, and that's their final answer for whatever reason, I think that's a good thing, that you dodged a bullet, that you're not going to be at a company that doesn't appreciate you for who you really are. And that you don't have to twist yourself into a pretzel and pretend that you're somebody that you're not, or just feel like you just don't fit. You know, so much of our waking life is spent at the job, right? Like we see our coworkers sometimes more than we see our families, our friends. So really feeling at home at work, it's not like it just make you a happier person. It's going to make you a better employee. It's going to make you just happier in life, not just at your job, but just happier in life. So that was my thoughts on that one. Yeah. What do you guys think about that?
Do you think that people will tell someone that in an email or over the phone that it was a culture fit?
I think that we receive it sometimes as recruiters. We'll get it from the company, and then we, you know, kind of need to translate after that for the candidate, or try to interpret, or oftentimes I might get the comment like, oh, we just don't think this person's a culture fit, and then they might not elaborate any more to me, but then I can try to join those dots myself and be like, okay, what was it about them? Sometimes I've had this person's not a culture fit because they don't seem enthusiastic about us enough, or excited about us, and we really want someone to work here that's really motivated and excited by our product. And that one can sometimes frustrate me, because the more I get to know a designer, any individual can convey excitement or enthusiasm in very different ways. And don't mistake someone's kind of demeanor of calmness and neutrality as a lack of excitement. And I've definitely had it in more cases than one of someone ultimately not going all the way through because they haven't been excited enough. As I got to know that designer, I thought, I've never heard them be excited about anything. That is them being excited. They do, like, you know, and then you could say that to them, oh, they're not sure how enthusiastic you are about this product. And, oh, I love it. I'm really into it. I'm into it for these reasons. It's like, oh, why didn't that come through? So
Yeah,
that's
I think,
sometimes
like,
a funny one.
I think candidates don't have to necessarily, unless the company really needs to see that for whatever reason. Like, I don't think a candidate needs to be like, lampshade on the head. Oh my God, here's my
Yeah.
parade. I'm so excited. But I think excitement can be shown by they've done a lot of research on the company before they did their first interview. They have really specific questions they want to ask whoever their, interviewer is.
Yeah.
Whether that's a TA person, talent acquisition, or, a hiring manager. Like, they're coming with really thoughtful questions that show they've done their homework.
Yeah.
To me, that feels like that should be enough. But I think in this
Right.
very candidate-rich market, I think clients are wanting candidates to go above and beyond. So it could be little things, like if you're doing your portfolio review stage of the interview, like maybe you have like a title card that has the company that you're interviewing at's name and maybe their logo, like it's really bespoke and for them. So maybe, doing those little extra touches where it's like they're not just looking for any old job, but they really want to work at this particular company, I think can go a long way.
Absolutely. Sort of a simple touch, or just any kind of interview prep ahead of time. You don't need to have put together a 30-page article about the company, but just having a bit of a clue can overcome that possible rejection of them being uncertain whether you're interested or not. Not that you're disinterested, but if they're questioning like, are you even interested in us? And that culture could be, well, this person didn't seem to research us, didn't seem to look at our website, didn't seem to look at, do anything ahead of this. And that is not necessarily the curious culture that we might be looking for in a designer who's going to curiously solve our problems.
I think the best way to show that is to really look at LinkedIn. I honestly go to the website, sure, I understand, about the team, about what they do. But look and see like the founders, the people on social media or the marketing team who are sharing articles about them and like news, I would say, blog posts. Read like 1 to 3 of those before your interview and like really understand kind of where they are and what they've done. And like, wow, it's so exciting that you raised your Series B last month or something. And, look at the like come prepared with these things. If you have, I think, LinkedIn Premium, you can see insights onto if a company is growing or not growing. There's a lot of interesting things. And if you sort of come with that, I feel like they'll be like, whoa, you know more about us than we do. We haven't tested our metrics yet. So
certainly help.
And I think also too, I think candidates right now are applying to a lot of different places because they feel like they've got to, kind of touch all bases and have lots of backup options and whatever else in this market. I think it's really important to have a good answer to the question of why do you want to work here? Like here specifically, because I think a lot of feedback that I get from clients is like, kind of feel like this person was just looking for a job. Like maybe not necessarily with us, they just want a job, right?
Yeah.
So think about like they might ask you that question, and if they don't ask you the question, I think it's important to weave it in somehow to say like, why do I want to work with you specifically, like this particular company, and have some good answers to that. Like have a couple of things you can rattle off about it.
Feel free to grab any questions there, Erica, or anything.
Right, I have to grab them. Do I just click on them?
You don't have to. You
can
click on them and hit show if you like.
Let's go back and see.
Do you think there's any that stand out that you would like to get across? Because this is what we're here for, after all, right? To answer questions, try to dive into like specifics, within a topic that we're covering. Try to shed some light.
Do you see anything of? I'm just trying to read back.
It's all right. Well, here's a simple one. Maybe we could grab. Is there a framework to the question? Why do you want to work here? And I feel like you covered some of that, but I think within reason, what you're trying to signal to someone, and that question can often come maybe a little bit earlier in the process, or I think with that you're trying to signal some alignment between yourself and them, as in them being the company, but there is an acknowledgement that you can't possibly know everything about that company and everyone that works there, so you can only align on the things that you can gather as well. So why do you want to work there? Well, is there something that stands out that caught your eye? there should be something. And if there's nothing that stands out in the job ad itself, in the company itself, in the person you're speaking to, if you can't mention one thing, then yeah, you really probably are in the wrong place. But there should be something that grabbed your attention. Look, I hadn't heard of your company before, but when I saw the job ad and you talked about the way that you were using geospatial analytics in, you know, a productivity AI powered platform, I knew that that was a challenge I really wanted to work on. And it was something that I've been doing a little bit of. That really piqued my curiosity. I looked in more. I then saw this, you know, I see that you actually work with shipping carriers around the world, and I find that stuff fascinating. Whatever, done. That's it. That's your reason. It's just honest. It's authentic. But there should be something that I think grabbed your attention as to why, and then you can just kind of relay that back authentically to this interviewer. So I don't know about framework per se, but it shouldn't be too hard to think of a reason why you're on that call, aside from you just want a job.
Yeah.
I know that if you're looking for one, yeah, you do want one, but maybe there's something a little bit more specific there.
It's definitely got to be more specific. I was reading somewhere else that it's really like, don't say, oh, if it's remote, like it's because it's remote. Don't lead with that.
Yeah.
It's like a bonus. Keep it to
It's not really a reason.
Yeah.
It's more of a red flag to me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a bit of a red flag unless there's, you know, different reasons for that. But I would say, don't say like, oh, it's remote or the pay is good. Like, you know, things like that. Just really about the company and what you like to do, what you're great at, what you'd like to bring to a new company.
Yeah. And I think, you know, to both of your points too, it should be an authentic answer, right? Like it's not just some BS thing that you're thinking up that you think is going to impress them. It's like, no, like really, how do you really align with them? Like what really does interest you? The more authenticity you can bring to the process, the more they're going to actually get to know the real you. And then they can make a real decision on hiring you, and you can make a real decision on if you want to join them. So I think coming from a place of authenticity, you know, putting your best foot forward, of course, within that authenticity.
Yeah, I mean, you could also research the team and sort of who's on the team and where they've come from, and they could be people you'd love to learn from their experience also, and whether it's designers or product managers or engineers or whoever. So there's a lot of ways to research like current members of the team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That you can bring up.
Yeah. And I think also too, this isn't necessarily like the why you want to work here, but just like a general interview tip. Because so much like there are a lot of candidates, there is a lot of competition. The more you can make an impression and the more you can connect with your interviewer, the more they're going to remember you. And I think we said earlier, design unfiltered, but people don't necessarily remember what you said, but it's how you made them feel. So I think if you can get a really good personal connection going with that interviewer, and that might be looking at their LinkedIn. Do they have like clubs they did? Like even if it was back in college, it's you know, it's still part of them. It's still like what they probably hold dear. Do you have anything in common with them personally? Or maybe you can like draw it out of them. Like I know in interviews, it's like, you know, a barrage of questions and you're answering them. But it's not as much as you can make it like a two-way conversation and pull the interviewer out and ask about them too, and make it like more of an organic conversation. I think that's going to feel like a breath of fresh air, to be frank, for the interviewer. It's also going to make them feel like, oh, they're connecting with me. They're taking the time. They researched me. Like that makes me feel really good. And so I think that could be smart too.
Yeah. So future subject lines, anyone reaching out to Joanne, just one time I went rowing too.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Haven't rowed, heard it's okay. Also don't like the cold a lot.
Rode,
you know.
hate it. Too early in the morning, I'll be like, I hear that. I hear you.
I feel you. Oh wow, I feel the connection already. Sparked. I love it.
Okay, moving.
You grab this question. Yeah.
Moving on. This is, how do you probe for details when the recruiter or hiring team says that they are not at liberty to discuss interview feedback?
There's some classic companies for that, isn't there, that don't allow it? Amazon, I want to say. Amazon's
responded, there's possible litigation. There's a lot of reasons. And I think that comes from the fact that maybe in the past, and you know, people aren't receiving it very well. So I think me personally, I would sort of say from the beginning, you know, hey, I'm really trying to like learn here and understand, you know, my success rate. And I would ask sort of questions throughout the interview, like, what do you see as a successful person here? Or like who has been successful in the past, kind of questions like that, right, guys? And I would really love some feedback, especially at the end. I'd really love some feedback so I can, you know, maybe work with my coach that I have, you know, just so I can upskill and continue learning and growing for my next opportunity. So I would really appreciate if you could share anything at all. That's how I would handle that.
Yeah,
it can be really. Go on. I know.
And they just might not be, it might just be company policy across the board. Like,
Sure.
especially if they're like a Fortune 500, they don't want to risk litigation. You know, going back to the cultural fit thing, earlier in my career, I did tell a candidate that they weren't moving forward because of cultural fit, and they were going to sue my client because she assumed it was ageism. It was not. I had more feedback than that, but that was an early mistake I made in my career. So now if a client says it's not cultural fit, I'll probe and get some more details and, you know, try to be as descriptive as I can, or not share it if the client doesn't want me to, right? It's, you know, it's kind of up to them.
Sure.
But sometimes, you know, a company just straight up just can't share it, which is sometimes why it's nice to work with an outside recruiter like us, you know, not to self-biscuit too hard. But I think sometimes a company might be able to tell us why. Oftentimes they will, right? Like, because we need to know like, what's a fit, what's not a fit. So they're going to be giving us feedback throughout the process. So we can share that with you as much as we can, as much as we're at liberty to. Of course, we have to respect the client's wishes, you know, first and foremost, but whatever we can share with you, because I think all three of us are here to help you. Like, we're on your team. Like, we want you to improve. We want you to do well in that interview process, but also future interview processes. So it's certainly, you know, I think something that we're all motivated to do as much as we can. So sometimes an outside recruiter will have those details when maybe it might be more opaque when you're on your own.
I think one thing I'm able to often do too on that recruitment front is see why people made it through when others, you know, don't go through to the next round. And although the feedback might not be too extensive from the company, or they're not going into too much detail with me, I can really pull a lot out just from looking at the more of the overall picture. Okay, this person didn't go through, they didn't talk enough about this. And the reasons that those people went through is because they seem to index really heavily on these factors, and that seems to be most important to this team. So it's, you know, and sometimes it's the feedback to the candidate, unfortunately, is there's nothing more that you could have done necessarily. It's not that you failed this in some way. It's just that you don't have the type of experience necessarily that the team is optimizing for. And possibly, in many cases, the team is a little bit spoiled for choice right now, and they're able to make some of these decisions. They're interviewing 5 people. There's only one role. It's 4 people that ultimately aren't going to be quite the fit. So, yeah, sometimes the feedback is there isn't any, just didn't land.
Another controversial, very difficult piece of feedback that we often get from our clients is surrounding visuals and polish and aesthetics. It is very difficult to relay something like that, especially, you know, we are rooting for you and we're, you know, trying to help you get the job, and we really feel like you're a great fit. And if they don't feel that way, then it bruises and hurts us as well. But it's really hard to sort of say like, hey, no, I can't even say it now. They didn't really like your work. They don't, I mean, that's really what it is. But
subjective art.
It's totally subjective. And it's very fascinating to me because I feel like I, you know, work with really great people, and I feel that every company I'm working with should like them. But when one person does and 2 people don't, it is a really big reminder to me, like each company wants and is looking for something different and needs something different. So it's just not the right fit, kind of. But it's still really difficult to relay that type of information to people.
Yeah, and it might be that, it might not be that they don't like you, right? It could be they don't like you for the role. They don't think it's a good fit for the role, right? Like, so you might not be a great fit for this particular role. You know, oftentimes if we get a product design search in, it's like, okay, our first question is usually, or one of our first questions is it a little more UI and visual leaning, or is it a little bit more UX and research leaning, or systems leaning, or design systems leaning, or fill in the
all
blank,
of it.
right? Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, all they want it all, baby. They want it all. So whenever I give feedback too, I'm like, hey, here's the feedback. Take what works for you and then leave the rest, right? And try to put it in context of like, this is what this one company said about you. Like, this is how they felt about you and your work. It doesn't mean it's the truth about you. It just means that that's how you landed on that particular client. So if you see things in there where you're like, oh, that kind of smarts, it kind of hurts to hear that, but I actually think they might be right. I think I could have done a better job of telling that particular story, or I could have packaged this in a different way visually. Then great, use that as fuel. That's like a really positive thing to come out of it, is that you're getting feedback first and foremost, which is really a gift. And then how can you use that? Like, use it as fuel. Like, how can you better yourself and your presentation and your interviewing skills? And then some of the stuff just may not resound with you. You might be like, oh, okay, they don't think that I'm, to Jared's point earlier, like, I'm not excited enough about the role. Well, I don't want to wear a freaking lampshade on my head and have to do this dog and pony show. So it's not the best match for me, right? So you can kind of leave that one behind. Like, that just doesn't really stick with me. So, yeah.
That's a really good point. I like that. I'm trying to think if there's any, and definitely people chime in the comments, like just feedback I've received in the last, 6-12 months where, why they passed or what they said. I've been working on some pretty high level roles recently where they want quite a bit of experience, and ego has come into that a little bit, I would say. These are very experienced designers, when we talk staff or principal ICs, they're probably people with over 10 years experience at least, maybe 15, probably more. Very capable, very accomplished, very strong designers at times, but how they fit into teams, where ego fits in with some of that, how they can assertively, share their points of view, but also be team players. Certain things like this, I've seen a piece of feedback or pieces of feedback about ego being a factor as to why they don't think this person might work longer term, which is very interesting when, you do have to be a strong, assertive designer to get to those levels at times. You have to have a voice and know how to use it. But yeah, so some things could be like, oh, in the interview, they just talked about, all these companies are making them job offers at the moment. But, really they're just looking for the right salary level. And it's like, oh, okay. So we're just looking for the highest bidder, or, these little bits of comments that you can make in an interview, and ultimately it doesn't land. So I've been seeing little bits of feedback like that. I see. Oh, this is an interesting one. Can I put this one up? Alison shared this. Overqualified. I feel like we see that. Why'd they pass on you? Overqualified. What does that mean?
Isn't
that a good thing?
Yeah.
Shouldn't that be great?
Right. I see Mike Rapp ask the same question too.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's definitely floating around LinkedIn right now. Sure.
What do you think that means? What do you guys normally see? See overqualified.
Joanne, if you'd like to start, it could be a combination.
Well, I think there's just so many people out of work, so many talented people out of work that should not be out of work if it weren't for the market, right?
Sure.
And so if you have a director applying for a senior role, or, a manager role, let's say, it's not that big of a delta, I think, it seems on the surface like, oh, great, easy win. We get somebody on the cheap who can do the job in their sleep. I'm a poet. I don't even know it. But they're afraid about longevity, right? Like, as soon as the market picks back up again and there's another director level or senior director level that you're actually qualified for, like, you're probably going to be out the door. And they know that. So I think, for a company to invest a lot of time and energy and resources, intellectual property, relationship building with you, they want you to stick around for the long haul. So I think, I think in some ways, I think it's a good idea for them to not hire somebody who's too high up. But, I've also put people forward for jobs that have been at a level or two higher than what's being asked for. But if the person really can convince me Like, hey, I love being hands-on. I really want to be close to the work. This is what I do, even though I've got this title. Don't let it scare you. This is what my actual day-to-day looks like. If I can feel convinced and you're giving me proof in the pudding of like how you actually have done that before, I might be willing to take a chance and send you to the client. Can't guarantee the client will say yes, but sometimes it can work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, if you're not going through us, then you definitely need to express that on that phone screen call to whoever you speak to.
On paper, it just doesn't make sense, you know, when you are advertising a senior product designer and you're receiving someone that, you know, their last title or two is director. It doesn't make sense. You're like, this isn't a director role, or there's no conversation that's been happening, no exchange. The receiver, that company, they're confused. Did this person just accidentally applied? Did they just cast the net? I don't really know. I don't really see the alignment. I'm only spending 5 seconds on this. I haven't seen the signal I need. I'm on to the next. Done. So you can run into a lot of that. And that's where I think you need to clarify your story if there is that gap, if there is a misalignment. Like, let me be clarified. It's the same principle of, I think Doone mentioned it earlier, of applying to jobs out of state, but you're open to relocating. I don't know that unless you tell me. I wouldn't know. And then I'm like, I'm confused why you're here. So you really need to clarify to me, because unfortunately the majority of the time what happens more often than not is, oh, this role's in a different state. Are you relocating? Oh, no, I'm not. That happens more often than not. So now the stereotype, or people assume, oh, you've just applied, you know, to the wrong thing. Same with director. Hey, this is a senior role. I see you're a director. Are you currently 100% hands-on? Are you wanting to be hands-on? And would you consider the salary range that comes with the senior level? Oh, no, I wouldn't. Okay. Why are you here? That happens so much that everyone has been trained that when they see that come through and the alignment isn't there, their immediate assumption is wrong person, wrong place. And that's it.
Right. So you say that those people who are directors should have 2 resumes then, one with IC titling, and one without, or one with director titling, just so that to avoid that. I see 2 things with that is, one, I think we all typically we'll get a resume and we'll go to the LinkedIn profile, sort of, you know, make sure it's the same person. But then on LinkedIn, you see different titles kind of. So that will be confusing. But this is why I really feel very strongly about a summary or an objective on your resume. You can call yourself out, say, hey, I know you're going to see these director title roles or whatever. I love doing those things, but I love the craft and want to be in the weeds every day. And you need to just tell us, we can't read your mind kind of thing. Don't let us get to the point of guessing and wondering and trying to sort of piece together on our side. Just tell us exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, it's spoon feeding us. We want to be spoon fed. It's not even about what we want and we're so special. It's think about the UX of recruitment, right? Think about you're a UX person, assuming. Put yourself in our shoes. We're your users, right? Don't make us follow up for your portfolio password. Don't make us dig through your portfolio to find relevant work. Yes, it's great to have one centralized place where your portfolio lives, but if you're applying for a job that's very design systems heavy and you've got some design system stuff that's maybe buried, then throw us a few links. Here's my design systems work. Right?
Yeah.
Just really making it easy and not so the less that we have to write you back and say, are you open to relo? Are you open to this title? Not just do you want to be hands-on, but are you hands-on? Can you prove to me that you are? So it's not just this aspirational thing, but do you actually do that? Then just put it all up front. Don't make it too long. Quick hits, nice and efficient.
This is your cover letter. That's it.
Yeah, but in an email, right? Not an actual cover letter. But yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's not generic. I'm a team player. All that brouhaha, all that fluff, you can just leave out. What's the meat of it, and what do we need to know about you, and what's relevant to the job that you're applying for?
Big time. Don't leave them guessing. And if you've been fortunate enough to get these VP titles over the years, but what you love doing is being an IC, being hands-on. Okay, maybe someone mistitled you a little in the past. No worries, but tell me what you've worked on. And if you love being hands-on, then I want to see the hands-on work. I got to see it.
Yeah.
I got to see the pixels that you've pushed. And if you're not a Figma pro, then that's not what I need for an IC role. So yeah, you are differently qualified. I don't know about overqualified, but yeah, it's not the needs of this position and what this company wants. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
I see you guys scanning more questions. It's hard to do both at the same time. I really struggle. I'm a bloke. I can only do one thing at a time.
We're used to juggling all the things.
Here, I'm just going to put this one up.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just added this one. I think this is cool. You can only see people.
That one.
How do you feel about reaching out to folks who visited your profile page? Is it desperate? Is it striking while the iron is hot? So you can only see people if you have the premium LinkedIn, which is like $40 a month, I think. I think it's actually a really good idea if you're on your LinkedIn all the time and you just applied to a job at their company, whether they're the hiring manager or someone else at the company, definitely shoot them a message. If you're connected to them, awesome. That means they're probably reviewing your resume maybe and looking at you. So I think if you're there and the timing is right, just go for it. You're always going to wonder if you don't, right?
Yeah, and even if you haven't applied there and they're just checking you out, it's still a great idea. Like they visited you for a reason. Maybe they're just like, oh, this person looks great, but I got busy and I got to do 10 other things. Yeah. So sometimes you're doing them a kindness, right? You're like, hey, here I am. I saw you
could be hiring in the future. Totally.
Yeah, here's my stuff. Like I feel like people will drop me a line and say, hey, I'd love to work with you. It's like, okay, well, where's your resume? Where's your portfolio?
That's Matthew's question right here. What is the best way to get? Which we did last week. So you got to go back and watch that episode.
Yes.
I feel like this is you talked a bit about this as well. Older jobs, why they, and relating back to the topic of why they pass on you potentially, but if it's in that initial touch point, like people are looking for alignment very quickly.
Yeah.
Regardless of job dates, like even if there is, you could scroll down and I could see you went to university, 2 decades ago or something. I don't know. I don't even get that far because if the information is aligned right at the start, then I want to have a conversation. I'm not that age part of it. I can't speak for every company out there, but what matters most in the current, volume of applicants and people looking at your work and things like that is instant alignment. The job has a title, it has a function, it's a specific product that they're working on. If that's not reflected very quickly in a CV at the start, then it doesn't get any further most of the time. And that's why they pass on you. So they're not going to see like, oh, you're a perfect fit for this job. You've worked on very similar software. You clearly have the experience. Oh, but I see, you might be X age. I don't see enough of that myself. But, I also think there's a lot of startups out there where, the 6 founders are all 20 years old.
Yeah.
I personally would struggle to work there.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I repped older candidates that have worked in very young companies and they've done great,
Yeah.
And they can be, but I think it's the candidate's attitude, the employee's attitude, right? It's like, I don't see age as being a hindrance to me. I don't see it being a hindrance to people that are younger than me. Like I have no ego about reporting into somebody younger than me. I think it could be great. And I think especially older candidates, they bring such a wealth of life experience to the job. So it's not just, professional experience, but it's like life experience. Like when what hits the fan at the company, which is probably going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Who's going to have the maturity and the wherewithal and just the sophistication to know how to navigate through those things, both professionally, but socially, emotionally, spiritually. I think it can be really great. I think sometimes where older candidates might stumble is that sometimes their portfolios or their presentations might be of a different era. So I think it's just important to stay up on like, what are the modern design trends? What are trends in resumes these days? So you don't want your resume to be 5 pages. You don't need to have a lot of bullet points for jobs that are 15 plus years ago. So I think just like really paring things down, making things really concise and just digestible for the user, the hiring manager or the recruiter is really important. But just make sure it doesn't look dusty. Like make sure it just looks, modern. That's a presentation. It's your self brand, like you're branding yourself with your work and your resume. So just make sure that looks up to date and that you're you're up to modern design standards and what people are looking for.
Yeah, you are the product, same as the software that is being designed today. Many companies investing in software, designing software, who are hiring designers to do so, for the most part, want a modern, current looking product. And all the older software has evolved over times. So it's similar for the individual in your work too, I think. Modernizing yourself, keeping up with it.
And edit the old stuff out too. That's one other thing I wanted to add is that don't show work from 15 years ago, because even if it was cutting edge and amazing at the time, it's still going to look old now. So just, as a UX person, you want to make sure that people know that you have good self-editing skills and that you are telling that most powerful story. And the most powerful story is going to be what you've been working on most recently.
Yeah, I love that.
Really good point.
I love that. Nice. Any other common why'd they pass on you? What they call out? One, you got something, Erica?
I was just gonna say poor communication, or like, I think we've talked about this before, about storytelling and that you talk too much or something, or you couldn't read the room. We get that a lot. Very hard to follow. And then kind of leads into like maybe a culture part of it. What were you gonna say?
Yeah.
Well, the other point I was just going to make, that's we're seeing a lot of at the moment, is just these effects of being sport for choice. Why they pass, and it's less that they passed on you, but they went with someone else. That someone else just more closely aligned to the role, had very specific experience, just hit a 10 out of 10 fit for them, and you might have been a 9 out of 10 fit. And that doesn't mean that you're less of a designer, less skilled, whatever it might be, but that just alignment that company really wanted for that role suited someone else slightly more. And so it can be really hard to create feedback and a reason why they passed. It was more just that they went with someone else. I do think that I'm having trouble articulating it, but I think that there is a distinction there between those two statements of we're passing versus we're going with someone else. So yeah,
it comes down. It really just comes down to timing, right? Like everything is about timing. They could have had somebody in process and it was just a week ahead of you, and your application. I think that actually comes back to the company itself, that maybe they're not, interviewing in batches before sort of saying yes or no before bringing new people into the fold of the interviews. I think there's a lot of waterfall interview happening right now, right? Like, maybe they interview 3 people and they're like, oh yeah, I like all of them, but I still want to compare. And that is the worst thing you can hear. Jared and Joanne, I'm sure we would strangle them if we could. Because again, it's timing. You're probably interviewing at 6 other places by the time they get to compare you to someone else, and you've got another offer, and that's just how it works, right? It's all honestly about personal desires, motivations, and then also timing. So if there can be somebody right before you, there's also, I'm very positive, people who come in right at the end who you didn't know. But this is the point about interviewing. Like you go with us or a recruiter, we can sort of tell you, like, we've got 5 people in process with them, but they're also working with another firm. So we don't know who else they have. When you're interviewing just like directly yourself, I think you have no idea how many people are interviewing. I mean, the recruiter at the beginning may say, we've got 6 profiles that we're going through, but they probably won't tell you, so you don't know. But I think just being really transparent from the beginning, kind of, or upfront about like, hey, I've got for places I'm actively interviewing with, rank them, know how you see that particular organization in comparison to your other things, why they're more exciting to you. A good recruiter will ask you those things too, so definitely know that. But I think everything comes back down to timing. And
it's a big
Hey
factor.
guys, I think, am I frozen or is my camera off?
You're a little bit frozen. Yeah, camera's off now.
I'm going to try to log back in. I can't look at any of the questions or anything, so I'm going to log out and see if I can log back in. Okay. Okay. See you in a bit.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
That's all good. We're doing it on the fly. This is an interesting question. Alison, thank you again for all your questions. What advice would you give for folks who need to outlast this spoiled for choice era and always coming in second, third? I mean, look, you're trying to figure out why did they pass? Why were you second or third choice? I think with some of that, honestly, elements of that to me sound like you're potentially not in the right room. It's great that many people might be getting interviews and getting into the process with companies, but there is also an alignment where you're the number one person. And if you get into some rooms and you have an interview, yes, you might be able to do the job, but is the company able to hire someone who is the number one choice? There hasn't been an interview process in a long time where they only interview one person at a time, and that's that. So you're always going to have some level of competition in an interview process. Yes, she's back. I think with that, it's about continuing to find the room, as in the company, where you are the number one choice, where your work and your experience and what you've done aligns the most. So you're number one. All designers have that. And it's a big combination of timing and showcasing yourself and working through these processes to get there. But I really think that for many designers on the job search at the moment, it's finding the room where they bring the most value. And some of those rooms, someone else brings a little more value because of their alignment or something specific about their experience. And that's just the way it goes. That's nothing new. That's always happened. But it feels exaggerated right now. Definitely. There definitely feels like a lot of elements of that at the minute.
Yeah, I think just in all of the interview conversations, like just connecting the dots back to why you are the right fit for the role and the problem space that they have. That could mean like speaking to the hiring manager, sort of sending them a follow-up thank you note is always great, and sort of say, hey, if I didn't describe this well enough, I wanted to just make sure you knew that, we didn't have enough time to really go down this avenue. But I really feel that, X, Y, and Z of my experience, specifically with this product and this platform, whatever, will, based on what I've learned today and what I've done research-wise myself on you guys, I think it's a really good fit. So I'd love to, just really connect the dots each time. And I, that reiterates your interest and abilities, I think, to hopefully move forward.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just a numbers game too, It's like you hear this in the dating world. It's like, you're going to kiss a lot of frogs before you meet your prince or your princess.
Oh.
Right. So sometimes you have to play the field and see what's out there. And, interviewing is rarely a waste of time, because every single time you interview, you're going to find out what companies are asking about, what's important to them. Are there certain questions that every company is asking about? Like, are companies asking about AI all the time? Like, probably a lot of them are. Like, what have you done in the AI world? Even if it's just like, oh, you've kind of messed around with ChatGPT. Hopefully it's a little bit more than that these days. But I think just getting out there, not feeling too downtrodden, just get back up on the horse once you've gotten bucked off, and just and keep it going, and never assume that anything's going to be going to fruition. Even if you're in like second or third round somewhere else, it's never a bad idea to keep applying. Like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Just keep it kind of like feeding that coal in the engine. Just keep that engine running. And at the same time, take time for yourself. Like, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Like, interview processes take a long time these days. And if you're doing a lot of them at once, it's a lot of information to keep straight, right? Like, oh, I got to get my story straight for this company and this company and this company. So don't overwhelm yourself. Do as much as feels comfortable, but also just make sure that you're like taking time for yourself, like do things you enjoy. You know, if you like playing drums, if you like, you know, walking the dog, like do those things that like make you happy. Because a person who's in balance and is being kind to themselves, like that's going to come through in an interview too. And if you're just constantly like, you know, zealotly, you know, working on your portfolio and tweaking everything and just like being obsessed with it, it's not a healthy energy to come into a conversation with. Like just, you know, being within your own self and being centered and grounded and what makes me me, what do I enjoy? And am I making sure that I'm doing those things at the same time as, you know, being focused and working hard and you know, putting time into the process.
I think, you know, you two can likely relate to this. On our side as recruiters, you know, we're working through the process as well. We're trying to help this company hire someone, multiple candidates, all the factors that go into it. And sometimes when we get someone all the way to the finish line and maybe they even get an offer, there have been many cases throughout the years of getting someone to an offer stage and they may or may not accept, you know, and that's totally out of our hands. You know, that is that person's decision to accept that offer or not. And we want to do everything that we can to help them make the decision that works for them, everything like that. But I reach a point normally in these processes where I feel comfortable that I've done everything that I can to give this designer the information about this role, about why I think it aligns to them. I've given everything that I can that I hope that they will see that and accept it. And ultimately, if they do not, then I know I did everything I could in that situation. I didn't leave anything on the table. I didn't think, oh, if only I'd told them this or that, or made sure I was faster with my follow-up, or I don't leave anything on the table. I want to do everything that I can. And I really think that's very similar for designers going into their interview processes at the moment. Be prepared, do everything that you can so that you can show up the best that you can, as balanced as you can, but having your work together, your presentation, all these sorts of things, so that if it ultimately doesn't work out, you kind of know you did everything that you could have in that situation. You showed up prepared. You didn't leave anything on the table. You did the research that you needed to do. You were having a good day. You put yourself in a good zone, and you showed up as best as you could. And if it didn't land, it didn't land. You know, so yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up another comment, if
Please.
I may. This is from
Olivia.
That one's wrong. No, Olivia, thank you for this. This is great. Any advice for those looking to sidestep into a slightly different position while the candidate market is so big? So I was having a conversation with a long-term contact of mine who's a leader in the UX field. And she turned me on to an article. Was it New York Times? It was a large, I forget who the publisher was, but it's called Job Crafting. And I thought it was a really interesting concept, which is taking your current job and changing it slightly in a way that you are enjoying more. So instead of just like, oh, there's parts of my job that I don't like, I want to move, or I want to be in a slightly different position, like this isn't working for me. Is there a way that you could do that in your current role? Right? Because I think doing a full-on career shift in this market is tougher than it ordinarily would be, right? Like if you're, you know, somebody who's in the agency world and you're looking to move client side, like that could be a little tough in this market. If you're a product manager and you want to get into UX, that could be a little tough in this market. Not impossible. If you have the right connections and the right story and the right work, you know, it's not impossible, but it's tougher. But is there anything, just looking at like what you have, like being grateful for what you have and seeing what you have, is there anything that you're doing in your job now that you could move away from? Is there anything in your job that you could be doing more of that really excites you and encourages you? So it might be worth Googling job crafting. I'm going to do that too, actually, and see if I can find the article. But
we're all doing it.
I mean, I'm kind of a good case in point, right? Because I've been recruiting for many, many years, and it's been, you know, changes like we've taken on product management 5 years ago. We took on software engineering this year. So it's, you know, changes in what we're taking on, doing more executive search. Like that's been feeling really good. And that's a change. But I'm like, what do I want to do for my own career? And so when Ariel got me in touch with you, Jared, and I was like, hey, I want to do more public speaking. I want to be on more panels. And then you were just like, great, let's do it. And I love that you were just like, okay, this germ of an idea. Like you were just so great. Like, let's just go do this thing. And then Erica, you coming aboard too. And like, what a beautiful community we have. And this feels really nice. Like, it just feels really good to give back to more people. And like, this is what I want in my own career. And it's been really shifting and morphing. So I'm still doing the same job, but I'm doing different parts of this job that I'm really enjoying. So,
Interesting.
Good to be something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of customer service, customer related things. That's my background personally. So getting into the recruiting, but also this live stuff, very new to me.
Yeah.
I like it now.
So you.
We appreciate you being here. That's for sure.
We have a couple more.
Any other questions you want to grab? We got a little bit of maybe time for one or two more if you wanted to.
Just a quick one. Somebody asked, I can't see the old comments after I logged out, but somebody said, should you hide the fact that you were laid off? Does it make a difference to employers? I actually don't think it makes a difference right now. Like so many great people are laid off. I think there's no shame in saying, hey, I was laid off. I was if you can say I was part of like a massive layoff, like 20% of my company got let go or 10% of my company, it kind of makes it seem like, less egregious on your part. But I think there's nothing wrong with admitting that you were laid off because a lot of great people have been.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jared.
The only flag I will say on that point is if you have been laid off, total bummer. But when I do sometimes speak to people and they may be saying, I don't really know why. I mean, I was such a top performer. I was the best person there. Like the company's going to fail now without me, or I'm exaggerating, obviously. Yeah, but it's that feeling of like, oh, okay. That to me is a signal of like self-awareness. Interesting.
Yeah. Totally.
So it's totally fine if you're laid off. So, like, it's happening so much and has been for a year. Very similar, I would say, when COVID kicked off and we saw a lot of layoffs at that time. Kind of just became a thing where you go, oh, hey, you're looking for work. Yeah, COVID. You go, say no more. That was it. That's all you needed to say. And it was like, I get it. Sometimes these decisions are on a spreadsheet. It's not. It's nothing to do with you, your name, your work, nothing. It's just, let's just delete that department. You just happen to be in that department.
I think yes, I agree with all of this, but I do think that if you've been unfortunate to be laid off a couple of times during the last 4 years, definitely say that or indicate that on a resume, on your LinkedIn, like reduction in force, or close this office, or acquisition or something happened, like sort of tell us a little bit ahead of time. Because I will say, kind of like the tenure thing from a while ago, if someone has been sort of, I hate to say this, but if you're constantly looking for a job, sometimes people will think to themselves, is it them? Is it the company? Not every time. I have heard it though, so I am bringing it up. It's a lot of like last one in, first one out kind of stuff. So just give us like a little bit of description, like they were impacted, they didn't raise their funding that they thought they were going to get. Just tell us a little something. But what I was going to also say is that it's very rare sometimes now to even find people who haven't been impacted at all within the last 5 years. And I have spoken to some people who've like made it through or whatever. And I'm just like, wow, diamond in the rough. Like, it doesn't happen anymore.
Lucky Jack. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, but we call that, I think to your point, Erica, like if you see a resume that's like a year here, a year there, a year here, if it's, if it's full-time jobs, if it's freelance, no harm, no foul. But if there's a lot of short-term freelance roles, like we in the recruiting world might call that Skippy. That's a Skippy candidate. Meaning, is that new to you?
Yeah.
Did I teach you
a little bit. That one is actually, that was a nurse.
So so clients might be a little afraid to take a chance on you. Like, oh, they kind of like to skip around. Like, why are they doing that? We're going to invest a lot of time and energy into them. So I think that's a great idea. I'd love that you call that out, Erica, to say something like reduction in force or part, the first bullet point, or maybe even like right under the company name, just so it's like getting rid of that worry immediately. It's not even a thing.
And I will say really quickly too, I think that people who are like lifelong contractors, and you put it on LinkedIn, but you don't indicate that it's a contract role or a freelance role, you indicate nothing. And I think automatically we think nothing is full time. So when you're 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 8 months, like at these same places, that to us first triggers a what's going on. Maybe they're a contractor, but they're not indicating that. And I can tell you, people internally often don't realize that either. And I think some of our clients will call it out first. They will be like, why are they moving? And I've spoken to many people who are like, you know what? I was young, I was contracting, I was flying all over the world. It was great, but I have a family now. My priorities have changed. I want full time. I want to stay in one place. So just indicate it as clearly as possible. There are options to add part-time, freelance, contract, or full-time on LinkedIn. So do that on all your roles. And if you're like, you have your own business and you're contracting, you can add, contracting, or Erica freelance. These are the clients that I've worked with during this period of years. That is also easier.
Yeah.
I think people do it the other way for the logos. But if you do it for the logos, write out whether it was contract or full-time.
And your title, I would even say like contract designer, freelance designer.
Yeah, I love that. I think we're kind of at time here. I like to try and keep these on time a little bit. As always, we will jump into these comments and try to fire out some replies to anyone ask questions that we didn't get to really sort of cover necessarily. I did see both of you jumping into those comments last week as well and giving lots of good replies. So our DMs are open. Unfortunately, they get absolutely slammed, but they are open. So definitely reach out to us. We all do some consulting on the side with this kind of work as well, this kind of help. So, feel free to reach out to us about some of that, resume, portfolio, that kind of work. On positive notes, I believe that we are all hiring designers across our respective clients. We all have little bits and pieces of work on. We, like all of you as well, under a level of pressure from the companies we work with to find very specific people. That is a lot of the time what it is. So, we have some exciting roles on, but they can get very specific at times. So if you match, you match. If you don't, it's a bit harder.
And where can people go to see your roles?
Oh, geez. Follow me on LinkedIn. I try to put them all on there.
Okay.
Yeah. I put as much as I can on there.
Great.
I do need to do a bit more of a repository of it.
Okay.
Do you is your site running for your roles?
Yeah, we're rebranding our site. So our site is really old and clunky. So please don't judge the appearance. But we do have a jobs page. And so we actually have a new lead product designer role that's on that page. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Go and check that out. Anything specific about that role they should have skills-wise?
It's at a really lovely consumer-facing, subscription-based pet food company.
Love it.
The best VPs of design ever. We adore him. And the person needs to be very visual and UI leaning. They have to do full end-to-end, but visual UI, so beautiful aesthetics, up-leveling the brand, design systems work. It's hybrid on site in New York, and it's between 160 and 180 with options. So if you go to JoanneWeaverGroup.com and go to our jobs page, you can find it there.
Excellent. Great note to end on. Anything
else? You guys want to pitch anything too?
I mean, I'm working on a role in San Francisco. If anybody knows anyone in San Mateo, San Francisco, it's a lead, possibly director of product design. You'll own everything B2B, healthcare, financial, sort of operations, back-end experience, and it's early stage. So it's a really great opportunity. Salary caps at 200 plus equity. Really great team. I think you'd be like the fifth hire. So if anyone knows anyone, please send me a message.
Great.
Love it. Excellent. Cool. Thank you as always, everyone, for tuning in, for the comments. This goes live. This goes onto YouTube for people to watch later. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Keep an eye out. We'll come up with a topic. Any topics, DM us anytime as well.
I won't be here in a couple of weeks, so you have to find a guest person. So I'll miss in 2 weeks. I'll be road tripping with my man. But I'll be back in a month. So have fun without me. Try to have fun without me.
Yeah, we'll try. We'll try. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.